Hello, I'm Dane, and this is Dan Explains. So, a couple weeks ago, I released a video that was my personal interpretation on something called Pascal's wager, which is basically the idea that it's better to hedge your bets and believe in God, just in case he exists, rather than risk not believing in him. A link to that video is in the description if you want to watch it after this one. Well, I never expected my video to get any traction, since, well, just have a look at the metrics of my other videos. I guess YouTube felt the need to share that video with more people than usual, and it got great engagement. So, this video is more or less a response to some of the comments on that video. People rightly pointed out the biggest issue with Pascal's wager. What if there's a god, or other gods, other than the Christian God? Maybe you end up butting up with the wrong god and paying for it in the end. Well, I think that believing in virtually any kind of religion is better than believing in no religion. Let me explain why. Before we get into it, let's define exactly what atheism is. For the most part, atheists just refer to anything that can't be scientifically proven, or at least logically inferred based on the scientific method. The word atheism doesn't quite mean that. Atheism literally means without God, so it doesn't actually exclude spirituality as a whole. Just the idea that any kind of God exists. So most people who call themselves atheists probably actually see themselves as a-religious. So for this discussion, I'll assume atheists reject all spiritual reality. That being said, if for some reason you call yourself an atheist, but think there might be a spiritual realm or that a God might exist, then that's actually a form of agnosticism. Basically, someone who believes there might be something out there, but doesn't believe any particular religion for whatever reason. The second thing I'd like to define here is, what is a god? Or actually define what isn't a god. The Christian perspective is pretty narrow on this. In fact, gods like Zeus or Ra wouldn't actually fit the description of gods to a Christian. If such beings existed, their power is only on the level of angels and demons. The last preface here is that I'm going to exclude the religions that practice murder and abuse, since they're an obvious exception. Also, in my video on Pascal's wager, some people felt the need to attack my analogy rather than the argument itself. So I'm going to go into heavy on the explaining and light on the analogies, since there's a lot to unpack in this short video. The idea that Pascal's wager is erroneous because you could choose the wrong religion, or that there are too many religions, is a red herring. Let's say for the moment there was an afterlife that everyone went to, but there were no gods to do any judging. Everyone just goes to the same place and gets the same treatment after death, regardless of their actions in life. For this discussion, let's call this religion spiritualism. Well, if you're an atheist, you have nothing to lose by at least believing in an afterlife. And if it did exist, you'd actually gain a little, because people would be more likely to treat each other better if they knew they weren't going to escape and have to deal with each other after death. If, however, you believed in a polytheistic collection of not-so-all-powerful gods like the ancient Greeks or Egyptians believed, the risk goes down and the reward goes up. If you're wrong, you lose nothing over the atheist or spiritualist. However, if those gods happen to exist and you're able to curry favor with one or more of them, it would be good for you in the afterlife. The one big thing you have to worry about with a polytheistic religion is how many of them there are. There isn't any one that clearly stands out and cuts across cultures. So picking the correct one, if there were one, would be difficult, although that might not matter as long as you didn't piss off any of the individual gods, since those religions don't usually have a clear-cut heaven or hell. The type of religion that has the smallest risk and greatest reward are monotheistic ones, like Christianity and Zoroastrianism. You only have to consider the judgment of one god, but not believing in him or believing in another god could make him angry. Now, if you were wrong about monotheism and there was a polytheism instead, it would carry a similar risk as being a polytheist and picking the wrong polytheistic religion to follow. So probably not a big deal. As for picking the wrong monotheistic god to follow, well, all things are not clearly as equal here as in other types of religions. One god completely dominates when it comes to monotheistic religions, cutting deeply across every culture, and that's the Abrahamic God. More than half of the world's population believe that he is the one true God, split mostly between Christians and Muslims. That dominance makes sense if there was one all-powerful God, unless he was a non-interventionalist, which is a story for another video. Odds are he would try to influence humanity in some way. I mean, why create us otherwise? Now, excluding the religions that are a blend of one or more of the types that I already mentioned, You may have noticed there is one particular religious group that I skipped: Satanism. The reason is Satanists aren't actually religious. They're just anti-theist atheists. They don't believe Satan or God exist and only worship Satan in order to mock religion. So Pascal's wager can be broadened to be not so black and white and be more like a sliding scale. However, unlike a wager in a casino, where the smaller the bet you make, the lower risk you have, in religion, the smaller you bet, the bigger your risk. Since by simply believing in an afterlife, you put in very little, you get out very little, but have almost just as much to lose as an atheist. It's a similar situation with polytheism. You're putting in as much, if not more, as a monotheist, while only gaining a little in the afterlife if you're correct. But if you're wrong, losing almost just as much as the atheist or spiritualist. Lastly is monotheism, with the lowest risk and greatest reward, especially since which monotheistic god to pick is pretty obvious. Believing in God gains you the most, while being wrong loses you the least. Watch my other video if you haven't and you want to know more on that. So, when it comes to religion, something is better than nothing, but they certainly aren't all created equal. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button. Subscribe to my channel and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people who support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.